Happy Tuesday, everyone. My name is Pratik Patel, and I'm your host for today's Lunch and Learn. I'm thrilled to have you all here as we investigate all things hybrid cloud with VMware and Lenovo. As you've heard, the amount of data being generated and stored is increasingly exponentially, and managing it effectively can be a challenge. This is where the concept of hybrid cloud, distributed cloud, and multi-cloud really come into play. With that said, in this rapidly evolving digital landscape, hybrid cloud has emerged as a powerful solution, bridging the gap between on-premises infrastructure and the unlimited potential of the cloud. In fact, it offers the best of both worlds, enabling organizations to experience the scalability, flexibility, and cost efficiency of the cloud while maintaining control, security, and compliance over sensitive data. And throughout this webinar, my goal will be to help you really break down those complex ideas and easily understand concepts. So whether you're a salesperson looking to leverage the power of the cloud to drive your customers' growth, or a technical expert seeking to unlock new possibilities in data management and scalability, today's webinar is really specifically tailored made just for you. And to help make sense of it all, we have some amazing guests joining us today. First, we have Jim Silvera, a cloud solutions architect with VMware. Thank you for joining us, Jim. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at VMware?
Sure, Pratik. Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here, and we have quite a group. This looks fantastic today. As Pratik mentioned, my name is Jim Silvera. I'm with VMware. I've been in our cloud solutions provider program, previously called VCPP, if anyone's familiar with that, since September of last year. And that was me rejoining VMware. I was here for 9 years previously and had left it in 2019, wearing multiple hats and roles in my previous time here. And I've been in the industry for over 30 years, the first 15 of which were on the delivery side as a technical consultant, doing delivery for many different organizations and software companies. And then the past 15 years have really been more on the pre-sale side. So a vast degree of background. I can't believe that number 30 is coming out of my mouth. I don't feel that old. I don't think I look that old, but hey, it's amazing what time does. It just keeps going. Anyway, pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. 30 years don't look at you for one day, so you're doing really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we have Samih Ajrouch, a technology consultant with Ingram Micro. Samih, so glad to have you here. Can you tell us about yourself and your role at Ingram Micro?
Yeah, thank you, Pratik. Pleasure to be here with you. Again, my name is Samih Ajrouch. I joined Ingram Micro 8 months ago, and a little bit background on my previous experience. I used to work as a cloud director for one of the biggest institutions here in the Middle East, and my main role is to basically migrate the institution to the cloud. After that, I moved to Microsoft. I was leading the educational sector. My main role was to help students to leverage AI and all the cloud services provided by Microsoft. And here at Ingram Micro, my main role is to help partners to how they can transform their data center from cost center into revenue center. I work closely with Jim on the VCSP program, which is the rental program from VMware.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you, Samih. Next, let's quickly go over some mechanics for the audience. First, please ensure your microphone is muted to minimize any distractions. Next, we'll share the link of today's recording once it's posted on YouTube. And lastly, I encourage you to actively participate in our conversation. You can do that by sharing your questions and comments by typing them into the chat. And I thought a quick way to start that off is let's do a quick exercise. What I've done is said, okay, what is the first thought that comes to mind when you think of VMware? For me, it's seamless integration. How about you? Could you put your thoughts into the chat now? I know the VMware team would really appreciate, some feedback on what is it that, people think of when they hear VMware. So what I'll do is, we'll let that, come into virtualization. Perfect. So perfect. Yep. Thank you for playing along. I don't know. I don't know if this is torture for you guys, but I think I like it when, we get to get some feedback from you. But, let's get the conversation started. Samih and Jim, this quarter, we've been discussing different storage solutions, and I would like to stay on that topic for now. So how does VMware approach hybrid cloud storage to ensure seamless integration and flexibility for businesses? Samih, can I start with you on this question?
Yes, sure. So again, great question. So VMware offers several solutions to facilitate the hybrid cloud. Now when you attend any of the VMware seminars, you will hear a lot about smart multi-cloud, which basically is a terminology that we use that you really can manage all your virtual environment on any cloud, whether it is hybrid, public, or at the edge. So how VMware basically facilitate this service or offer these service to the end users, basically facilitating hybrid cloud storage is to ensure seamless integration and flexibility for the business. One of the key offering from VMware is the VMware Cloud Foundation. Now, VMware Cloud Foundation is a combination of multiple tools that VMware put it together where you can really deploy it in a couple of clicks to really transform your data center into software-defined data center. And when we talk about software-defined data center, we are talking about compute, storage, networking, security. Anything that resides within your data center can be transformed into a software version. Adding to that, the deep integration with any of the hyperscaler, whether it is AWS, Azure, and Google platform. Now, the deep integration between Cloud Foundation and vSAN really will give the end user a lot of capability. And one of these capability is you can extend your storage, which reside within your data centers, to any of the clouds, whether it is hybrid or even public cloud. So deploying vSAN along with vCloud Foundation can really, or any other of the hyper-converged storage, can really extend your capability to present those storage to any of the virtual servers, regardless where it exists, whether it's within your data center, at the edge, or even at the public cloud.
Hey,
You
Samih, I
muted
think
yourself,
you're
Samih.
muted.
Okay, sorry. So one additional offer is the deep integration between VMware and AWS. We have a very solid collaboration with AWS where you really can manage all your environment on AWS by leveraging their capabilities, the same way that you are managing your environment within your local data center. So there are multiple solutions and multiple approaches that VMware can help you really to transform your data center into software-defined data center. But most importantly is how you can manage this environment or any environment in a seamless way. And by this, I would love to hear the thoughts of Jim. Jim again is from VMware and he's subject matter expert on this one. So.
Samih, thank you so much. No, some really great points that Samih has made there, right? Somehow I got muted too. There you go. You should be able to hear me now. Somehow I got muted there. So I was just looking in the chat, and Samih made some really great points there, but I was looking in the chat, and a lot of what is VMware known for? Virtualization, VMs, right? So it's much more than that. It really is a platform, and VMware really is a foundation of the concept the cloud is built on, has been for a number of years, and even previous to how mainstay the hyperscalers have become, VMware was really the solution that was predates it from the standpoint of how do I deliver a cloud-like environment. I was talking to a customer recently that told me, and really I should say partner because I deal with our cloud solution provider business, that their customers are wanting agility and uptime, and they see that as cloud. And I kind of disagreed and said, really, it's not the uptime and the speed that they want, it's the agility that they want. Agility and automation is really what cloud represents. And that software-defined data center concept that Samih was talking about is really the fact of how do I get that agility? How do I be able to deliver in those exponential capabilities that the business is expecting today, the cloud really provides. VMware is a foundation of that, of how do you do that in your own environment? How do you get out of that real estate business and use something like the CSP program that I'm a part of and Samih supports via Ingram? And then as well, you know, how do I take the concept of not just a VM and not just compute, but I relate that to how do I deliver networking? How do I deliver storage, which is what we're talking about here in regard to vSAN? Those are all key core components. Those components represent what Samih was talking about and highlighted as VCF, but that's portable. And how do I transport that into the hyperscalers with their VMC on AWS solution, or to Azure's AVS solution, or Google's or Oracle's? We all have VMware has integrations across all those cloud providers today and others. So there's a lot of value in the fact of having a standard platform that's consistent and reliable to deliver in a very quick and agile method. Hopefully that summarizes a lot of what Samih just said, and I'm going to turn it back to you, Pratik, for moving on to the next question.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you. Just to give some context here, VMware and Lenovo have been developing solutions together for more than 20 years. Really helping customers modernize their IT infrastructure to take advantage of today's hybrid and multi-cloud environments. This collaboration has really yielded the Lenovo ThinkAgile VX series, which is a VMware vSAN-based solution that combines computing and storage into a single system and runs apps seamlessly across multiple cloud environments. And best of all, these solutions come in certified node and turnkey integrated system offerings, allowing customers the widest range of choices to decide how and really when they want to get to the cloud. So Jim, starting with you, can you help us understand how this VMware and Lenovo partnership addresses security challenges and ensures data protection across the hybrid environment?
Yeah, absolutely, right. So it really is not just a vSAN story. It's really about the fact that it's back to the foundation of VCF, the components of the compute, the network, and the storage, right? So storage from a vSAN perspective has security built in, that you have data at rest and encryption. But then also the entire security stack really revolves around NSX, from how do I manage that from intrusion detection? How do I manage that from the standpoint of anomaly detection and within a VM of tools like Carbon Black, and there's multitude of others. I think it goes back to that point of VMware is no longer just vSphere and no longer just about VMs. It's really a full component of tools to help manage that environment for infrastructure in a virtualized world these days that really represents cloud. What Lenovo is really bringing, and what you highlighted there, Pratik, I'm not an expert on Lenovo itself, right, it being from VMware, but from that hyperconverged space, it's the fact that you can get a high amount of density of drives within those boxes, especially fast and flash storage, and putting that into use in your virtual environment and having that span across your hosts is really where vSAN comes into play. And that comes in the form of hyperconverged infrastructure, right? So that HCI is a matter of going back to that word I used of what does cloud represent? It's really automation and agility. So how can I quickly get that agility in my data center by not just delivering hardware, but also delivering the software components that are going to run it, and then have that be automated. So within the VCF stack, or VMware Cloud Foundations, there's something called the SDDC Manager that allows you to take, whether it be a principal solution that's out of the box like Lenovo, but deliver the software components on top of it and get that quick agility to start delivering that infrastructure and put it into use in your environment. And then as well, have that be like a cloud-like experience for your customers as well. So that's really where it's coming into play, of being able to secure that, making sure that the security is in play, which is throughout the entire VMware platform, but also giving that agility for how quickly can I roll out something in the form of a hyper-converged infrastructure. Hopefully that makes sense of how it comes together with Lenovo, answers the security question as well. And with that, I'm gonna turn it back to Samih and say, Samih, any additional insights that you have regarding this question?
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. I think you hit the right nail. As you mentioned, the collaboration between Lenovo and VMware is not only limited to go to market with the one products. They have a common R&D centers where they really test every single piece of software that VMware develop on all their hardwares. And probably for those who are Lenovo customers, can really notice that when they drive discussion with the sales, VMware topic comes in many discussions. So the collaboration between Lenovo and VMware is critical because running a software on untested hardware will lead to problems. So Lenovo made sure that every piece of software VMware is developing is fully compatible and can be run smoothly on any of the hardwares, whether it is compute, storage, networking, and even at the software level, there are some integrations. So for example, running vRealize, you will see that you can have some add-ons, or the new name of vRealize is ARIA. You can have some add-ons to really manage the underlying softwares, which is the underlying hardware, which is developed by Lenovo. So I hope I gave some clarity to that. Thank you, Jim. And by this, I hand it back to Pratik to go to the next question.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate your, even though you, like you said, not experts on Lenovo side, but you handled it beautifully. Perfect. Thank you. With that said, could you provide an overview of VMware's, hybrid cloud's approach and how it really caters to the unique needs and challenges of businesses transitioning to or from the cloud? Samih, could I leverage you to start that conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. So VMware Hybrid Cloud approach is to resolve around providing a consistent infrastructure and operational model across any cloud. And for this, I can give some examples. So for example, running a consistent infrastructure, it will really help the partners to work on a single platform, whether it is those infrastructure is running within your data center, at the edge, or even at the public cloud. So common infrastructure across private and public cloud is one of the main vision for VMware. Seamless workload mobility. VMware approach focus on enabling seamless workload mobility between on-premises and for the data center or any of the public or private clouds. And this by leveraging the capability of AWS, Azure, and Google. So one of the things that VMware is doing is you can really run your workloads, whether it is an application, infrastructure as a service, database as a service, on any of the public cloud. But most importantly is that you will have the capability to migrate between those public clouds. And to be honest here, many customers are now looking to leverage the multi-clouds. So it's during my discussion with the partners, I see many partners that they are leveraging AWS, but they are also considering to have certain workloads running on Azure or even at Google. So how VMware can help you with this, can help those partners, is to provide them with a seamless integration. Hybrid cloud management is also another management tool that you can run across any cloud within the single interface. Data and application portability. This will allow the partners to really, or the customers to really move workloads between those different clouds for many reasons. One of them, for example, cost leverage. So they can really assess and see how much this workloads will cost them if they want to run it on Azure versus AWS. And finally, the enhanced security and compliance. And this is one of the examples that I can give here is the healthcare. Running a workload for a healthcare really dictates some compliance. So you really need to make sure that where this workloads is running and who has access to it, and is it compliant with HIPAA? Is it compliant with FERPA? All these can be integrated and can be accessible from within one interface. So the overall hybrid cloud is to aim to provide business with all the flexibility that they can run the workloads on really any cloud. And this can be achieved by many tools that are available at VMware. I would like to hear Jim's thought on this one as well.
Yeah,
So Jim, back to
absolutely,
you.
right. Yeah, I appreciate that. So exactly as you were saying, right? So it really is that consistent infrastructure. It doesn't matter where the workload resides. You know, a lot of people are running it in a VMware rental provider these days. So they're moving out of their own data centers. They're finding they don't want to be in that real estate business anymore. Especially with how the world's changed just in the past few years. They necessarily don't want to go to a hyperscaler either, because with a hyperscaler, they don't get the level of managed service that they have. But what they do know is that they have this infrastructure that they've built over years. They're having, management issues with it, of how well can they bring the right resources to manage it. So they're looking to these managed service providers to give them a very similar, easy to move workload that revolves around VMware. But they're also looking at that multi-cloud world of how do I embrace that in a hyperscaler world. And some of that can be the flexibility that, a VMware environment in one of those hyperscalers give you. By having a consistent stack that we talked about earlier, VCF, you get that same capability across any of those cloud providers, including your on-prem or a VCPP partner or CSP partner, as we're calling it today, from the standpoint of what's the portability of that VMware workload. But then it's not just the VMware workload. VMware now has the ability that you can run containers as well within the VMware platform. It's still the basis of that VCF foundation that we're talking about. So how do I migrate those containerized workloads from being in a hyperscaler or cloud provider to being able to be on-prem or in some other provider as well? And VMware gives you a great deal of flexibility there. So it's really the fact of how do I have this common cloud-like experience that allows me to run the workload in the destination of my choice, give me the flexibility that I need. And VMware gives you the consistency of the platform to really do that. And then as well, it gives you that enhanced security and compliance that Samih was highlighting as well, where you get the insight and the security that's built in to make sure that you are getting that secure cloud-like experience also. So hopefully that highlights some of the areas that Samih was talking about just a few moments ago, and further highlights this question that you asked, Pratik. But I'm going to turn it back to you.
Perfect. So to dig in a little deeper, could you elaborate on the specific features and capabilities that VMware offers in its cloud solution, that really supports organizations during their cloud journey that we kind of mentioned earlier, and even specifically, for those adopting hybrid cloud model?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're going to hear that there's a repetitive theme throughout today's call, and I don't want to beat a dead horse too much, but it really does revolve around that consistent VMware Cloud Foundation of what are the components and the underlying components that represent VMware. I think everyone has heard that loud and clear and probably several times for each of these questions today. But the other aspect here is really when you get into the management, right? VMware has a whole suite of management tools that give you multi-cloud management and visibility into native public clouds, as well as your own VMware environment and others, even at the application level. And that tool set today is called ARIA. It was previously called vRealize. And it allows also our service providers that work with us on the rental side of the business to monetize and use that tool set to offer a common platform for organizations to manage those different environments they have. That's creating new silos in the world today, from the standpoint of these different cloud silos that we have. I got workloads running in AWS, some running in Azure, and some running in Google and others, but I manage them differently. It's better to have a common management platform that I can bring the team around, that I can manage them from a very common perspective and have that from a simplified perspective for how do I manage it. And that also leads us to the fact that we've talked about it several times. You can take that VMware platform and you can run it in any of those environments as well. You can have that consistency to run it in Azure, AWS, or other cloud providers and have that common platform for the portability of those workloads, and also the oversight of what I was talking about from the management perspective as well. And then we have our I think there's over 4,000 cloud solution providers today that allow those organizations to move out of their data centers, move into a common platform and have a managed service to provide it for them, really giving additional value add in the marketplace. And that comes across with, networking and security is kind of the common backbones. And on the network side, especially when you're in the multi-cloud world, each of those hyperscalers have their own network stacks. And that network stack can be very frustrating for the fact of, how do I have that commonality of what does multi-cloud represent? And that's that network fabric. And NSX really ties that together from that multi-cloud perspective for how do I have those disparate network stacks, have some sort of common fabric across them and implement common security standards as well. And then we also have tools that allow you to have, a common disaster recovery and business continuity standpoint. So how do I use tools like vCloud Director Availability that allows you to do near real-time or very low RPO replication across sites and have that disaster standby and use some of those providers, whether it be the hyperscalers and the VMware solution there, or some of those cloud solution providers that we're talking about as well. So it's really a full stack of, how do we help you move on that cloud journey and start to embrace that hybrid cloud, embrace what that question was all about of, getting out of the four walls of my data center and start embracing the cloud. A lot of companies have really embraced that over the past few years. It's just amazing how probably 3 years ago, people were kind of standoffish on putting workloads in cloud. It was all kind of maybe shadow IT, or it was developer workloads. And today there's so much production workloads that are getting moved to cloud and trying to get out of being on-prem, but hybrid and multi-cloud kind of mix those two terms, but that's become the normal and the standard of today. With that, I'll say, Samih, back to you. What are your thoughts on a big topic to unpack there?
Yeah, great insight, Jim. So since you mentioned cloud provider, probably it's also worth to mention that an overview about the VCSP program. Now, for those of you who doesn't know what's a VCSP program, it's the rental program provided by VMware. So literally, any cloud provider can download any software from VMware, run it within their data centers, and they can transform through this program their data center from cost center into revenue center. There are no limitation on which software you can use. And the nice thing about this program is that you really, you pay as you grow. So you can start small, you just pay for, you just contribute or subscribe to a minimum commit. And based on your growth, you can extend your environment and start leveraging any software provided by VMware. This will give partners the great opportunity to really allocate some resources from their data center to start selling these services to their customers. And again, since we are talking about multi-cloud, the software will provide you with all the capabilities that you can manage the workloads, whether at the customer side, at your data center, or even at the public cloud. So again, great insights, Jim. And by this, I hand it back to Pratik.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you. So a question from my audience. When you're talking to your customers about VMware, what are some of those questions that come up all the time? And it might be a little bit difficult to answer, or you might want the experts here on the call to be able to kind of help you with formulating a response. Do we have anything on there that we can, anybody wants to share?
Yeah, the top question that I keep receive is, VMware is famous in virtualizing servers, but what they really don't know is that we really take all hardware and virtualize it, whether it is compute, storage, networking, and even security. So there are a lot of questions around how we can leverage VMware to really run anything within our data centers. So this is one of the top questions that we keep receiving, and we keep educating our customers and our partners that you don't only have to limit yourself to virtualize your servers. You can virtualize network, you can virtualize storage, you can virtualize this security. And since we are talking about virtualization, this will give the partner a great capability in really taking this code, because everything is running as a code. Take this code and move it to anywhere. This will simplify the disaster recovery, the migration, and even the replication between sites and data centers. So it takes us sometimes to really educate partners and users that software is here to stay, and you can virtualize anything within your data centers. You don't have to limit yourself with the hardware. You don't have to limit yourself with the vendor lock. You can virtualize anything and put it as code. And Jim probably can elaborate more on this point.
Yeah, absolutely right. Especially when we're talking about the CSP program, the Cloud Solution Provider program, we're seeing so many of our users. It really revolves around the core components that represents VMware and what some of those enterprise customers that historically have invested in our perpetual licensing. We give our providers the ability to really take a simple model that works off of something called a usage meter and get billed monthly based off of consumption. And generally that consumption is around how much RAM has been used, but they have the flexibility to monetize that any way that they want. Those are some great examples that Samih alluded to, that it's not just IaaS and I'm hosting a VM, but it could be a storage solution that they're doing. It could be a disaster recovery and business continuity as an offering that they're giving. It could be the fact that it's network virtualization and its load balancer as a service, or firewall as a service, or multi-cloud connectivity as a service, or it could be visibility against VMware's management suite. So there's a multitude of ways to help customers deliver value for their business through the provider, through the cloud provider platform, and do so from a consumption model as well, which is really where the world's going. I think that's what's really the fact of why people are embracing cloud is only pay for what you use. And that consumption-based model is really, really valuable. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Pratik.
Perfect. Yep. Samih, let me point back to you, but what I'm thinking is, for those in the audience who may be new to hybrid cloud technology, can you provide some practical examples or use cases that really demonstrate the value and the impact of VMware's hybrid cloud solutions in, let's say, real world scenarios?
Absolutely. So during our discussions with partners, basically we try to talk less technical but more business requirements and business objectives. The top 5 things that I have in mind, and this is mainly the top 5 topics that we usually drive with partners, is disaster recovery, business and business scalability, DevOps, data center extension, and data center compliance. So if we look at the disaster recovery, one of the main topics that we keep discussing with partners is how you can secure your environment, how you can make sure that if anything fails, your business is still running. VMware provide a number of tools that are really capable to protect your data centers in case of failure, whether it is hardware failure or even a site failure. So replicating, and again, we're going back to the same topic, which is software. And since everything is running as software, we can provide the partners with the capability to really replicate everything what they have in their data centers and put it on another data center or even at the public cloud. And this was not an option in the hardware world. In the hardware world, we need to have a similar hardware, similar processor, similar environment to really replicate the workloads from one data center to another. While in software world, really this will reduce the data loss to near zero. In many cases, customers reported that there are zero downtime when they migrated or when one site failed, and they were able to really run these workloads on a different data center. In terms of business and scalability, many partners start looking at the hyperscaler or at the hybrid cloud as an extension to their existing data center. So instead of putting an upfront investment to extend their data centers for workloads that they do not probably see today, they can really stretch their data centers by leveraging other data centers and even hybrid cloud or public cloud to really make an extension to their data centers to run workloads there. DevOps and application developments. We all coming from the hardware background. So one of the main challenges that I personally used to face before is how we can replicate a production environment, put it in a test environment so developers can work on it. In the old days, that used to be really a nightmare. Now in the software world, you can really take snapshot of any application, whether it is running on, and here we're talking about multi-tier applications, whether it is running on one server or even hundreds of servers. You can take a snapshot, put it aside, give it to the developer, do their coding, test it before running it into productions. Again, data center extension and cloud migration is great flexibility and capability once you are in the software world. And the compliance, which is mainly mostly important for customers who are really needs to workloads in a different geographic locations. You need to make sure that you are running their workloads in a compliant environment to make sure that those workloads are within the regulations and are protected. So these are some of the examples that what you can do with software, what you can do once you start virtualizing things. Really, the sky is the limit, which we didn't have this flexibility before. And by this, I hand it back to Jim to elaborate more on that point.
No, appreciate it, Samih. No, you make some really great points, right? It's the devil's in the details in the technology, but the real decision, especially all allowed around these cloud discussions, is what is the business need and what is the business trying to accomplish, right? And by having that agility and automation I was talking about earlier, doing it in a software-defined manner really helps, right? And it boils down to use cases you were talking about, right? What's important are those 5 things that you really highlighted earlier, right? Disaster recovery, business continuity, bursting and scalability is another option. And also what you were just talking about with DevOps and application development. Organizations were looking to get out of their data centers, right? So what's that data center extension and cloud migration of getting out of my data center or consolidating my data center that I want to have a smaller footprint, but have a little bit of flexibility to do that and migrate some of that out to cloud. And also data sovereignty and compliance become really critical, right? If I'm going to leave my data center and I have some governmental restrictions or I'm a governmental end customer, what type of sovereignty guarantee do I have for my data that I might have compliance that I need to mandate? So those are the things that are really driving a lot of that discussion, as you were highlighting very well. So those are a lot of the similar type of discussions that I'm hearing on a day-to-day basis also. So just I think you covered that very well, and I'll turn it back to you, Pratik.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you. I love that discussion about use cases. Definitely helps to understand a little bit more. And one of the things I've noticed was we've touched on security, multiple times, and I think that's really because security plays a vital role in cloud adoption. So then, really, how does VMware ensure robust security measures within its hybrid cloud solutions? And what are some of those best practices that organizations should consider when implementing VMware's cloud offering? Jim, could I ask you to start?
Yeah, absolutely. There's probably some really simple things to start with. We were talking about earlier with the hyper-converged infrastructure, right? Especially for those providers, even the end customers that are using VMware Cloud Foundation. They get something called the SDDC Manager with VCF or vCloud Foundation, and that SDDC Manager gives a simple tool to allow you to patch, upgrade, update your environment, and do so in a very easy life cycle approach manner. So that really helps in just keeping the foundational components in check, updated, and compliant from a security standpoint. But then it's also how do I implement those security controls? And I think we touched on this earlier in some detail of the fact that really it's not just the VMs anymore, but it's the network and also the storage components. And NSX is a really key component on the network side for where a lot of security tools and measures come into play. Mentioned earlier is tools around in threat protection, IDS, intrusion detection systems. We have an acquisition that we did on a tool from a cybersecurity standpoint called Carbon Black. it helps architect and design what are the security components you're going to implement. But it also gets back to a topic that Sammy was talking about earlier, that it's not just DevOps, it's DevSecOps. How do I make sure that I do that from an automation perspective? And because this is all software defined, I can make sure that I have the proper security controls in place. I can use automation tools that allow me to blueprint those services, and from that blueprinting perspective, make sure that it gets replicated and rolled out in a consistent and unified manner. So I have solid security controls in place. And then as well, from that monitoring perspective, and how do I manage that incident response, right? So you have the monitoring perspective from ARIA, you have other tools like I already mentioned, which is Carbon Black, to get better incident response on it. And then as well, VMware is notorious for their education, right? Making sure that your team is updated and trained and has a great deal of awareness. I'm going to turn it back to Sammy in just a second here, but I think he can probably even tackle it. And you as a partner, Ingram, is fantastic for enabling your customers, VMware's customers, and you're a great partner to us to make sure that training and awareness happens. This is a great example of it, of having sessions like this, but there's more formalized aspects as well. And with that, Sammy, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. So probably it's also worth mentioning that one of the topics that we keep receiving from partners is what's the capability of NSX. Now, with NSXT, there are huge capabilities, but it's mainly focused on security. So in addition to the ability to provision and deprovision, whether it is switch, routers, firewall, load balancer, NSX comes with some security features such as threat prevention and threat protections. We all know that networking is the first layer of defense. And what VMware is investing heavily in really protecting your environment through NSX by providing you with all the capability that any security appliance can provide you with. So NSX is not limited only to provision and deprovision. But it's also worth mentioning that for those who work deeply in networking, one of the nightmares is how to manage all these networking rules. In many scenarios, the networking admin usually create a rule and probably forget to remove it after this rule became obsolete. So within NSX, and since all this is software, and since this all managed through one within interface, you really have all this visibility to know what rules you need to keep, what are the timestamp, and what are the lifetime of these rules. So again, NSXT provides great capabilities for the networking admin, but it's also provide you, so for those who are not really in the software-defined data centers, they can deploy NSX on its own. So you don't really have to run vSphere, vCenter, any of the VMware products to be able to use NSX. NSX now comes as a separate bundle. So you can really take NSX by itself, deploy it within your data centers, and you have your network virtualized within a couple of clicks. By this, I will hand it back to Pratik to go to the next question.
And Pratik, I'm going to just jump in for a quick second. I find it really funny because it's really amazing. This conversation started out with you giving us a precursor of what Sammy and I were coming to talk about today, which was kind of a focus on vSAN. Hopefully we've done that justice and brought that out, but it's so funny with the cloud discussions. The big topic that probably resonates today is security. Security is top of mind for anyone and everyone doing cloud. And sorry to kind of jump in there, but I'll turn it back to you, Pratik. It's very funny how this really has become much more of a security discussion, but hopefully we're also representing that full platform of what we're here to talk about today from the perspective of how that all plays together.
Perfect. Yep. Like you said, it's a broad topic, so definitely, a lot of different angles that you can look at it with. So, finally, I have one last question, really. I'm, looking at my technical and sales professionals that are in the audience. They're really interested in understanding the ease of integration and deployment of VMware and Lenovo's hybrid cloud solutions. What they really get is there is a Lenovo ThinkAgile VX series, which I previously mentioned. They they actually come with integrators that are available for VMware. So simply put, if you know VMware, then you already know how to manage Lenovo. You don't need to learn a whole different system to manage the hardware and the overall VX solution. So that's one thing to keep in mind there. And the way I've always seen it is, I just say is like really as a result of those integrators, VMware's hybrid cloud solution can really be seamlessly deployed in ThinkAgile VX, really allowing for a unified software platform across all cloud environments. Along that same line, could you share some insights into implementation processes or, any considerations customers should keep in mind? Samih, can I go with you first?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, as you mentioned, whether the partner is a VMware partner or a Lenovo partner, they're going to both hear the same story from VMware and Lenovo. And the reason behind that is that we really work closely with Lenovo. As I mentioned, by testing all the software that we develop to make sure that it can run smoothly. But we also take an additional step. So for example, if you are a Lenovo partner and you open a discussion about how they can help you in planning and assessment, you're going to see how they will pull VMware to put it in the picture, and how VMware can provide you with the planning and the assessment capabilities and validation. This is also another area that Lenovo or VMware can help you really to make the best out of both softwares. Architecture design, Lenovo and VMware have really invested heavily in helping you to really design your architecture, as well as hardware and software configuration. And finally, the ongoing management and support. So whether you are a Lenovo partner or VMware, you will get the same support from both partners. And there are no finger pointing here. So if you open a ticket with VMware and you are a Lenovo partner, they would be able to really pull resources from Lenovo to help you address this particular problem, and vice versa. Jim, I will hand it also to you, because your experience in this area is extremely extensive.
Sure. Sammy, thanks. Right. I mean, the world we live in today, it's a very interesting world. Supply chain issues for all of us. I don't care whether it's in your personal life and you're going to order something, the supply chain issues are impacting all of us. And in the business world, it's just as bad, if not worse. Lenovo's solution, outside of that, I get it. I want it to be quick and simple, that I'm going to have that agility and that automation to implement it. Adding VMware on top, using VCF, having vSAN as part of that, having the network compute and storage components, the SDDC manager. I've heard from many of my counterparts that are specialists in this area talk about the matter of minutes to stand up and get that hardware usable in production. It's just, how can I expedite it? How can I have, I'm going to go back to what I said early on in this discussion today. It's really about agility and automation. And that's really the value that we bring, is how quickly can you get that hardware into production, start using it, get that cloud-like experience, right? I always love the fact of the t-shirt that always said, cloud, it's just somebody else's computer, right? I still need hardware. Just because we call it cloud, I still need a CPU. I need RAM. I need disk. I need to store it somewhere. So I need the hardware, but how do I abstract that hardware away and get it usable as quickly as possible? VMware adds that value on top of the hardware that you're consuming. That's really where that hyperconverged comes in, and how you can get that cloud-like experience, and then implement that with a standard stack that really allows you to implement that intrinsic security through the entire platform that, I highlighted. Security really became a mainstay of the conversation today. So really, hopefully that helps you understand the ease of integration, the quickness of deployment, that hopefully was the foundation of the question that you were answering, Pratik. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to you. I'm going to say thank you for the time to be able to speak today. It was a pleasure being able to have this chat with you and Sammy today, and thank you for the time to allow VMware to be present here.
Oh, Jim and Sammy, I should be thanking you. You guys, did an amazing job today. Definitely very informative. Hope, I know my partners, I'll actually get a lot of feedback afterwards. But I think some of them are just shy to be, giving that kind of feedback here, but definitely, that's really the conversation. Was there a question that just came in that maybe?
So what's the question here? Will vMotion, vSAN give way to something Kubernetes based or incorporate? So probably a bigger question to unpack than what is represented there, but I'll do my best based off the way that it's positioned, right? VMware views a lot of what is represented from our Kubernetes offering that really represents Tanzu resides on vSphere. Or in vSphere. It allows vMotion just allows the flexibility of host failure and the moving of those workloads. A lot of Kubernetes and container-based workloads are no longer stateless; they're very stateful, and you're just adding further tooling and flexibility and common tooling to allow the flexibility that gives you. Obviously, with stateless workloads, there's a different story there that you have hard failures and you have the replication, and load balancing becomes a really critical component as well as all of the other features in there. So yeah, I hopefully that answers the question or does the question some justice, but it's probably about 5 different ways that you can unpack that and probably a topic in its own right. With that, I see a whole bunch of thank yous in the audience. If there's any other questions, happy to address them. And I think, Pratik, you said that we were also going to possibly go through the chat and maybe figure out how to get back to people that asked some questions in here that maybe we didn't get a chance to see or answer.
Oh, definitely, I'll share that information afterwards. But as we're the session is drawing to a close, I wanted to kind of leave with some important information. First, I know Kylie had already put on the link for July's event, but let me put it in there. Second, please look out for an email from my Ingram Micro team about how we can help you with hybrid, distributed, and multi-cloud opportunities. For me, the key takeaway really here was VMware and Lenovo make a great team because they work together to simplify hybrid cloud environments. So from the Think Agile portfolio all the way to VMware's wide range of features and capabilities, the way I see it is, it's they just take the complexity out of delivering complete hybrid cloud solutions. And the way it sounds like is with the Think Agile VX offerings, since it really integrates really well with VMware, it just makes an ideal choice for customers already utilizing VMware. For me, it just sounds like a win-win situation for my channel partners and VARs. So, in conclusion, what I wanted to basically say was, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Sammy. I really appreciate all your insights and your time. That's really it.
Thank you, Pratik, for having me. It's a pleasure and looking forward for more sessions. And thank you, Jim, for sharing your experience. Your time is really appreciated.
Take care, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank
Have
you.
a great afternoon.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Have an awesome Tuesday. Goodbye for now.